But what if Medusa wasn't a villain at all? What if she was a metaphor for boundaries? For what happens when a woman, violated and silenced, finally learns to protect herself? We do it too, don't we? When someone crosses our line, we shut down, harden, freeze. Not because we're cruel, but because we've been hurt before. Tonight, we're unraveling Medusa and boundaries, the psychology of turning people to stone, and the quiet art of staying soft without being destroyed. Chapter 1. The Gaze That Guards. They say Medusa's power was in her eyes. One look, and you'd turn to stone. But what if that power wasn't born from cruelty, but from survival? Before the curse, Medusa was human, open, kind, and trusting. When that trust was violated, when her voice was taken from her, something inside her shifted. She learned that being unguarded was dangerous. So the gods gave her a gift disguised as a punishment, a stare that could keep harm away. That's what boundaries are, misunderstood forms of protection. To outsiders, they look harsh, cold, even intimidating. But to the one who's been hurt, they feel like safety. The first breath after drowning, Medusa's gaze mirrors the moment we finally say, no. The moment we stop letting others cross our lines just to be liked or accepted. It's the psychological armor that says, I will not be destroyed again. Yet, people rarely understand this kind of power. They label it anger, bitterness, or control. But it isn't anger, it's clarity. It isn't bitterness, it's healing. When you've spent years being soft in a world that took advantage of it, your stare changes too. Not to harm, but to warn. I'm not who I was before. Medusa's gaze reminds us that boundaries aren't about turning people to stone. They're about finally protecting the parts of ourselves we once left unguarded. Chapter 2. From Wound to Weapon. Every boundary begins as a wound. Before it became strength, it was pain, raw, unprocessed, and often ignored. Medusa didn't ask to become a symbol of fear. Her power was forged from betrayal. When no one defended her, she learned to defend herself. That's how many of us build our own armor. We take what broke us and sharpen it into something that can't be broken again. The tone in our voice changes. Our patience shortens. Our smiles fade into stillness. We start calling it independence. But deep down, it's survival. Pain is strange that way. It can either make us small, or it can make us sharp. When we aren't allowed to cry, we learn to command. When we aren't believed, we learn to stop explaining. And when our softness is exploited, we learn to wear it under steel. Medusa's transformation was the body's response to violation, a mythic version of the nervous system's defense. Fight, freeze, harden, protect. Her curse became her boundary. But here's the truth. Healing isn't about losing your weapon. It's about learning when to lower it. Boundaries built from pain will always feel heavy until they're rebuilt from peace. Medusa didn't become powerful because she turned people to stone. She became powerful because she finally stopped letting anyone touch what was sacred. Chapter 3. The myth behind the fear. Why do we fear women, or anyone, who can't be controlled? Maybe that's why Medusa was called a monster, not because she was dangerous, but because she stopped being obedient. The myth of Medusa isn't just a story about punishment. It's a reflection of society's fear of boundaries. A woman who says no, who refuses, who withdraws her softness, becomes threatening. We've seen it for centuries. Strength in women gets rewritten as cruelty, confidence as arrogance. Boundaries as walls. Athena's curse represents that cultural discomfort. Instead of protecting Medusa, the goddess punished her, as if the power to defend oneself was something shameful. It's the same dynamic we still live with. The world praises resilience, but resents resistance. Medusa's face became a warning symbol on shields and temples. Her image used to frighten enemies. But what if that was the truth all along? That what society fears most is a person who cannot be violated again. In psychology, this is the shadow effect. We project what we fear within ourselves onto others. We call self-protection anger, because we've never learned how to protect ourselves without guilt. Medusa wasn't feared because she was cruel. She was feared because she was free. Her story asks us to question why we still demonize the ones who dare to draw a line. Chapter 4. Softness versus safety. Healing asks for a delicate balance, the space between softness and safety. Too open, and the world can wound you again. Too guarded, and you start to lose the warmth that makes you human. Medusa lived at that edge. Her power kept her safe, but it also kept her alone. Every gaze that met hers turned to stone. No connection, no tenderness, only distance. That's the hidden cost of overprotection. We survive, but we stop feeling alive. Many of us know that place. After being hurt, we tell ourselves, never again. We build walls so strong that even love can't get through. We mistake isolation for peace. But boundaries aren't meant to harden us. They're meant to hold us. They should be flexible enough to let light in and firm enough to keep harm out. In therapy, this is the shift from defensive boundaries to conscious ones. Defensive boundaries say, I'll never let anyone near me again. Conscious boundaries say, I'll decide who's allowed close. And on what terms, Medusa's tragedy reminds us that safety without softness isn't wholeness. The goal isn't to stay frozen in defense, but to uncoil, like the snakes in her hair, alert, alive, and aware. To stay soft is not to be weak. It's to trust that you can open your heart and still survive. That's not the absence of boundaries. That's their mastery. Chapter 5. Turning power into presence. Real power isn't in the threat, it's in the presence. Medusa's stare turned men to stone, but imagine if she no longer needed to use it. Imagine a version of her who could meet the world's eyes without fear, calm, grounded, unshaken. That's what healed boundaries look like. When pain first shapes our defenses, our energy carries tension, the readiness to fight, to flee, to prove. But over time, power matures. It stops needing to protect and starts learning to guide. That's the shift from reactivity to regulation, from control to clarity. Psychologically, this is integration. When the parts of us that once screamed, never again, finally trust that we can handle life now, our voice steadies. Our gaze softens. We no longer turn people to stone with our silence or anger. We simply stand, clear, calm, unmovable in truth. Medusa's evolution mirrors what happens when boundaries stop being weapons and start becoming wisdom. You stop needing to scare people away because your energy already says, I'm safe with myself. No punishment, no fear, just presence. When you've faced your own monsters, you don't need to be one. Your power stops roaring and starts radiating. That's the real transformation, when survival turns into sovereignty, and the gaze that once guarded you simply shines. Medusa's story is not just a myth, it's a mirror, a reflection of what happens when pain meets the need for protection. She was called a monster, feared for her gaze, punished for surviving. And yet, beneath the legend, There's a lesson about boundaries, power, and self-respect. We all carry moments where the world tried to break us, moments where saying no felt impossible, where protecting ourselves seemed like cruelty. But boundaries are not cruelty. They are courage. They are the declaration that your life, your body, your heart, these are sacred. Medusa shows us that it's possible to be strong without becoming cold, to defend without destroying, to guard without closing off. True power is not the ability to petrify others. It's the ability to remain whole while letting the world exist as it is. When we set boundaries consciously, we transform fear into clarity, trauma into wisdom, and defense into presence. Like Medusa, we learn to protect ourselves, but also eventually to open our gaze again, not hardened, not frozen, but steady, soft, and unshakable. Our boundaries, when honored, are not walls. They are the architecture of a life lived fully, fiercely, and freely.